One video game genre that often has me scratching my head is 3D platformers. It's a genre that hasn't felt refreshing in the modern age. Either the old guards have a firm grasp on what they started, or cult classics are being remastered in favor of being revived. A Hat in Time, Yooka-Laylee, and Super Lucky's Tale are all fantastic in their own right, but these games are rare occurrences of a diamond finally reaching the surface after years of searching for gold. The volume has lessened and developers aren't as comfortable with experimenting like they were when 3D platformers were the new kid on the block. The days where we could look around and see tons of fresh faces trying to make a splash within the 3D platformer genre are all but long gone. But that doesn't mean people aren't still trying. On my quest to find a game that was reminiscent of a time where any idea was a fresh concept, that's exactly what I found when I stumbled into Max, the Curse of Brotherhood. Oh, the games we find during the Steam summer sales. We find lost artifacts, hidden gems, and lots of future regrets. Every now and again I'll stumble onto something I've never seen before that piques my interest. Such was the case with Max the Curse of Brotherhood. So what's this game about, who made it, and where did it come from? Max the Curse of Brotherhood was developed by Press Play, best known for being the team behind Max the Curse of Brotherhood. Upon further investigation, this game is actually a sequel. Who would have thunk it? Max and the Magic Marker came out 4 years prior to the Curse of Brotherhood in 2010. Putting these two games side by side is quite a sight. It's crazy what some time and Microsoft money can do. Yeah, for the sequel title, Max was picked up and published by Xbox Game Studios of all companies, and was even shown at Microsoft's E3 2013 press event. How in the world have I never heard of this game? With Microsoft essentially acting as the engine that powers your car, how did Max at the very least not become a common name among gamers? Well, let's find out. Our story begins with Max coming home from a long day of school. When he gets up to his room, he finds his younger brother Felix smashing his toys. To remedy the situation, Max does what any good brother would do: vanquish little bro through a magical vortex. Guess he had that one coming. Knowing he'd definitely get grounded if his parents found out he sent his brother to an alternate dimension with no way back, Max decides to jump in the portal as well to find him. Thus, our story begins. Once Max crosses to the other side, he finds out Felix has been abducted by a creature that looks like something straight out of Where the Wild Things Are, but perhaps a bit more menacing. Who they are and why they have or even want Felix is unknown, but surely it can't be for anything good. Now, the first taste of gameplay. This intro stage does an absolutely fantastic job of naturally teaching you the regular problems you'll face and the overall flow and feel of platforming to come. Walking speed, small jumps, big jumps, and objects to make your movements easier are all presented in an approachable fashion so that you can understand each individual application and property. This reminds me of something very similar to when I spoke about the level design in my Super Bernie World review, for teaching us the bare necessities and what we should be expecting. Truthfully, I have no complaints with how things are set up here. Nearing the end of this opening level, we approach the biggest tree I've ever seen in a video game. Great Deku Tree, eat your heart out. I just smack talked a 20-year-old tree from Zelda. We scale this monstrous tree by climbing rocky platforms, swinging on vines, climbing tree branches, and water streams that shoot out and form in front of our very eyes. Upon reaching the peak, we meet a nameless, frail-looking old lady who kind of reminds me of Jerry from that one Pixar short, if anyone watching this is old enough to remember that. This old lady tells us that with her powers, she has long been able to protect the world from Lord Mustachio. But because she's getting older, Mustachio recently has been able to gain the upper hand, but he's getting old as well. I'm caught in this crossfire of a senior citizen's quarrel. It's like the grocery store checkout line all over again. Mustachio's final task to check off the list in order to obtain complete power is a body in which he can transfer all his energy. Of course, that's where younger brother Felix comes into play, as Mustachio has chosen him as the unlucky victim. Ew. The old lady blesses our magic marker with her mystic forest powers, and the rest is, as they say, history. Now we have the ability to create our own platforms. They have to be made in specific spots as shown by the orange marker. They can be built and destroyed at will, but can't be adjusted after the fact. What I mean by that is whether you make it 1 inch high or 1 foot high, it can't be changed after it's built. You'll have to fully destroy it and make a new one. This is where the game rips off its mask to reveal its true identity as a physics-based puzzle platformer. This will be expanded upon as we get deeper in the game, but for now this is the primary skill we need to master. Along the journey you'll grab collectibles, avoid enemies, and make smart use of your surroundings. The two collectibles scattered about are pieces of a broken amulet and eyeball plants, neither of which are given much importance and essentially act as fluff to pad out the length of the game. The amulet is by far the worst of the two. It's not explained how it got there, what it does, or why I should even care enough to go out of my way to grab the pieces. Listen to this.
Max, you have found the first piece of my broken amulet. See if you can find them all.
I don't know about you, but I don't feel all that incentivized to care about this thing when the person responsible for praising it comes up with that as their best sales pitch. It's so easily forgettable that I didn't feel like I was losing out on much when it slowly drifted out of my subconscious. The eye plants are a completely different story. They're Mustachio's way of keeping an eye on you. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, I am supremely proud of myself for thinking of that one, by the way. They serve as living, presumably breathing, security cameras. How do you collect them? By yanking them out the ground and killing them. I feel so terrible. The fact I'm slowly crippling Mustachio's power is fine, that's not the issue. I could tell immediately these eyes didn't want to be here, but that they're powerless against the fact. Look how frightened these little guys are. They know they're defenseless, they know what you're gonna do, so they cower in terror waiting for their impending doom. Decapitate them out of their plant socket? I've never felt so bad for killing something in a game before. The sheep in Spyro, fine. Using Yoshi as an extra jump, painful but bearable. The eyes in Max, scarred for life. They don't want to fight, they don't want confrontation. They're just doing what they gotta do to get by. What a sad ending. You want me to collect these to kill almost 100 somewhat innocent bystanders? Please. The two collectibles are completely optional. You can waltz through the game ignoring them completely and still get the baseline intended experience. So what's the point? Give these meaning, give them value. Perhaps they do, but they're not explained or shown well. If these are meant to be special, make them special. Actions speak louder than words. Navigating this desert landscape feels like one gigantic puzzle. Almost every individual area is its own puzzle. Figure out how you get from one side to the other, do the things, move on to the next screen, rinse and repeat. I gotta give credit where credit is due. With such a huge chunk of level progression being centered around puzzle solving, never was it too tedious or even repetitive. As someone who hardly ever plays puzzle games, I can appreciate the gradual difficulty scaling. Instead of having all the different enemies, abilities, and challenges presented from the start and then rearranged in various methods throughout the remainder of the game, they're ushered out slowly but surely. Each puzzle is a small test to prove how well you understand the physical properties of your own powers, enemies, and other assets around you. This is not simply a game being dumbed down for a plebeian such as myself, but a perfect way to teach someone without feeling like you're being taught. It's really well done, and I love it a lot. Making it further, the new abilities we get for our magic marker are the same ones we saw when ascending the tree when we found the old lady from earlier. Tree branches which can be used as ledges to climb on or disconnect to move to reach somewhere else. Dangling vines that act like ropes to swing from. Even the water currents are added to your arsenal to assist with propelling you like you're riding a water slide in midair. These end up being woven so intricately together. There were tons of moments where I sat back and thought, I'm pretty confident I wouldn't have been able to think of this myself in 5 million years. They really are more than what meets the eye. Their usage is much deeper than how they look physically on the surface. Branches can be used like barriers to protect you from enemies. Vines can be used like tethers to attach to other structures to move objects or shimmy across it like a tightrope. Platforms don't move only you, but anything else you want to place on it. The final upgrade we get, the magic marker, is an attack that shoots purple flames. This can be used to both defeat enemies and destroy surfaces that look a little worse for the wear. This isn't unlocked until we're near the end, but this ability may be the most diverse out of all the tools in our toolbox. Finally being able to directly take out enemies is immensely gratifying. Kinda like how your feet feel after you've been walking all day, like the foot tingles, the good tingles. One thing I haven't touched on yet, and I can't believe it took me this long to get to this, are the controls. They're simple and to the point, but could have potentially been a lot better. Let me explain. So I'm using an Xbox One controller here, though I'm sure a 360 controller works all the same. You move with the left control stick and jump with the A button, the usual platformer norms, that's fine, they feel good. To use the magic marker, you hold the right trigger and draw your platforming accessories out with the A button. To destroy said thing you just built, you hover over it and cut it in two with the X button. These, like the regular platforming controls, work just fine. There's only one issue. You can't move while using the marker. This doesn't seem all that bad, but there were a few instances where I felt unjustly defeated because of the slight limitations. It got me thinking, why can't I move and draw out things at the same time? The right stick isn't used once in this entire game. This thing may as well not exist on this controller. I say this because I believe this sounds good on paper, but wouldn't work if executed. Despite the camera always being on a fixed angle which frees the right stick of any purpose, the idea of moving with the left and drawing with the right seems like a logical idea. However, the idea of moving while drawing an object while having it not be sloppy is asking a lot from this game. I'd be using the left stick to move, the A button to jump, right stick and right trigger all at the same time to draw stuff out. That's a hot mess, a steamy outside outhouse hot mess. And logically, this would also require more scenarios to be put in the game that demand on-the-fly movement and drawing segments, which isn't really all that necessary. As a whole, the controls work well, but are fundamentally flawed. I don't think there's any way moving while drawing things out could have been implemented without making a clusterfuck out of the control scheme. It's the lawful evil of platformer controls. Usable, but underwhelming. Enemies, for the majority of the playthrough, are treated like a legitimate threat. If they touch you once, you die and get to see some horrendously awful ragdoll physics. I kinda dig it though, having to scamper and creatively maneuver from enemies on a consistent basis really showcases how powerful these otherworldly beings are. I mean, you are a kid after all, in what universe is a little freaking kid gonna beat the crap out of some gigantic grotesque monsters? Nothing like that exists whatsoever. There is nothing even remotely sort of like that. This thing right here, it's not real. I drew this right now. Like the magic marker skills, they're not just there to be there. You gotta think about what you're gonna do and avoid them beforehand. If you go in all willy-nilly with no plan, you may as well just point the gun at your feet before you pull the trigger. Some are small, some are big, some are fast, and some are slow, but rest assured they'll all take you out with just one shot. So stay on your toes and keep your eyes peeled. One enemy type I didn't like much were the bosses, surprisingly. A lot of them involve Max being chased by some enormous atrocity and you have to do marker maneuvers on the fly. Doesn't that sound familiar? It doesn't blend well. It's not even that the controls are bad, but they're simply not made to do tasks quickly and in succession with one another. I believe this is what we call coming full circle. So much of the game is paced in a way where you have time to think before what you're gonna do. During these battles, you have little to no time to take in what's going on or what to do. All the times I died during these boss exchanges felt cheap and undeserved. Instead of me being defeated or outsmarted, I couldn't do the specific prompt they wanted me to do when it came up. I felt like I was failing QuickTime events with no button prompts on the screen. Trial and error until I could remember all the inputs I had to do beforehand so I could get a quick jump on what I had to do. For what it's worth, they do feel very grandiose and cinematic. The camera angles give off a proper scale of how monumental of a task this really is. It's the one thing I'd say I actually enjoy about these boss fights. Luckily, they don't take up much time and take place as often as good Sonic games come out. Through all the enemy avoiding, power using, puzzle solving, one thing I expected to happen but didn't was a progressive unveiling of Mustachio's character. Aside from being the meanie who kidnapped your brother, the game doesn't try to make him more villainous throughout the game. He doesn't mock you, he doesn't tease you, he doesn't even threaten you. He just kinda waits for you to show up. How intimidating. The story is like, it's serviceable, but I think it could have been a lot better, you know, if they had fleshed out the personalities way more, making, you know, like Felix seem like more helpless and in danger, and making, especially Mustachio, like a true wicked, crazy psychopath, like a true villain. What we get are cutscenes so short they make a YouTube ad feel long. These could have been used so much better to really flesh out these characters. Besides these moments, they hardly ever make an appearance until things wrap up towards the end. Going through Mustachio's castle is the best part of this adventure. All your skills with the powers you've obtained put to the test in a multi-hour trek through hell. Well, at least it looks like hell. It strings together every possible combination of marker magic with one another to make sure you got what it takes to bring Mustachio down once and for all. When we finally locate Felix, he's trapped inside a hamster ball. Geez, where have I seen that before?
I am Gorgle.
We don't save him, of course not. We gotta move him from one side of the castle to the other, all while he slams around inside the metal hamster ball. Moving Felix around the castle with the magic marker abilities was incredibly fun, in a somewhat cruel kind of way. I'm trying my absolute best to move him in one piece, but he's shrieking and shouting and flipping his because, and let's be honest, this would actually suck pretty bad if this situation were real. It's how I imagine living life as a pinball would be like. Fun for about maybe 10 seconds tops and then you just puke. This part specifically right here where you have to lower Felix with a bunch of vines coming from different directions at different angles was just great. I can't tell you how many times I flubbed up this section, but boy did I enjoy every moment of it. It's like trying to man a wrecking ball with someone being inside it. After once again flinging Felix into another room, Mustachio suddenly appears and swiftly snatches him before we can get close. We then chase him while a pool of lava rises from the ground floor. Have you ever wanted to play an Indiana Jones chase scene as an elementary school child? Well, here you go. I thought this portion would be the final moment before we finally confront Mustachio, but I was incorrect. After the lava pit segment, we scale the outside of Mustachio's castle. I was a bit puzzled by this section, no pun intended. The upward climb with the lava on our heels is like the beginning of the roller coaster ride where the anticipation builds up. Instead of a confrontation with Mustachio being the exhilarating dip down after we hit the apex, the game sort of flatlines the hype with more streamlined gameplay. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it just makes the flow feel a bit awkward up near these end parts here. The gameplay and puzzle solving is fine, but there isn't anything extraordinary here, nothing that feels like it should have been left for near the end of the game. It isn't overly difficult, and it isn't overly complicated either. Now, I think I might just be grasping on straws to find something to complain about, like maybe just a wee bit, but I still, like even now after completing the game, would have much rather fought Mustachio after the lava bit as opposed to like this little detour outside of his castle. After one more leap of faith followed by a quick climb of a ladder, we finally meet Mustachio face to face. Unfortunately, it's too little too late, as Mustachio has already begun the process of transferring his energy into Felix's body. This scene surprisingly got my blood boiling. It made me care way more about Felix than I thought I would have at all. It's the combination of a little kid being tortured and Mustachio acting like a slimy, creepy, disgusting, repulsive old man enjoying every second of pain that this child goes through. After this, I had more than enough ammo to want to take Mustachio out. See, now this is what I'm talking about. Instead of saving something that makes me hate Mustachio until the end, why not sprinkle it throughout the game? More stuff like this, scenes that show Mustachio being an evil scoundrel and Felix being a defenseless, worrisome child. I feel like perhaps I would have been a lot more invested by this point if the game had attempted to do so. I hate harping on this so much, but I really think it would have added a ton to the game to make it just that much more great. I was mad for about 4 seconds, and I just started laughing.
Felix?
Can you blame me? So here we go, we fight Mustachio via Goliath-sized Felix with a mustache and Frankenstein head bolts. It's a standard fight as far as boss battles in a platformer game goes. Let him throw out his pattern of attacks, and once that's over, a long pause for you to take your shot. Needless to say, we have the magic marker's unique twist on things. We give Felix a tree branch antenna and tether it to electrical sockets using the vines. We can damage him with the fire spells that poke out from the walls and avoid his fist slams attack by raising platforms that come off to the side. I wish there was more to talk about, but that's really all there is to say. I was able to beat Felix in, I'm not even trolling here, like less than 5 minutes. A very easy fight. I would say this was underwhelming, but the pre and post-fight cutscenes make up for this. Max rushes towards Felix to make sure he's okay. And he is, because he's normal again. Mustachio gets pissed and tries to crowbar Max's chunk of concrete he's standing on off the cliffside with his cane, but his plan backfires when the ground underneath his feet crumbles, giving him a long plummet down deep to the bottom of the well. Max and Felix stand triumphant on an individual concrete block, stranded. This actually kind of sucks now, doesn't it? When all of a sudden, the old lady teleports herself in front of us and creates a portal which transports Max and Felix back home, making our entire journey to Mustachio's castle absolutely pointless. Max and Felix arrive back home where they begin playing with their toys just like old times. I like how Max is all happy Felix is home, proud of himself like he did a good deed. It's not like you're the sole reason any of this happened or anything like that. Suddenly, Felix grabs the magic marker, starts messing around with it, and causes thousands of dollars worth of property damage. And game. Overall, Max the Curse of Brotherhood has its fair share of upsides and downsides, but ultimately I think the positives easily outweigh the negatives. The ability to bend environments to your will with the magic marker is one of the coolest things I never knew I wanted in a video game. It really feels like you're in control of not only your destiny, but everything around you. I can't recall if I've ever felt this power in a platformer before, or if there even is another game that has this sort of ability, but this feels really unique to me. There's variety, there's complexity, there's originality, and I can't ask for much more than that, can I? The only thing I really disliked about the gameplay, and at its core root, is most likely user error. I suck at puzzle games. I felt some of the puzzles were a little too cryptic. This didn't happen often, but when it did, I felt like the dumbest man alive. There were a few puzzles that felt like I completed them the way opposite of what the developers intended. Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing here? Like, this looks too much like what I'm not supposed to be doing here. Max, Felix, Mustachio, the old lady, and all the enemies are presented in a way which you can gauge what they're like almost immediately. The severity of the situation and the traits of these characters are never hammered home beyond a surface level. I think more cutscenes showing Mustachio being a son of a and Felix being a damsel in distress really would have built more character and a better relationship between the game and player. The collectibles being presented as virtually valueless is disappointing. However, if you are a completionist, it will add more varied puzzle solving gameplay to your experience, so that's there. I was able to finish Max the Curse of Brotherhood in just over 6 hours, and that was just me playing the game as I would have anyway else. I did try going for the collectibles a little bit, but after slowly realizing that the time put in wasn't worth the lack of payoff I was getting or not getting, I really stopped caring quick. If you play puzzle games often, I think you could shave the time off down to around 5 hours if I'm being honest. If you're experienced with puzzle games and are going to try to grab all the collectibles like a completionist run, I'd say the game may take you around 7 hours, 8 in an absolute max. I think for any type of gamer, casual, hardcore, achievement hunter, design nitpickers, Max falls into that space of being good, but not great. The things that drag the game down are so insignificant, it didn't ruin it much though. Although I do think Max is definitely a game that could have been great, the cinema quality visuals, the one-of-a-kind gameplay twist, the easily understandable characters are all great. I really like it a lot. There just isn't anything here that's excellent or outstanding in anything quality for my taste. All in all, I would say Max the Curse of Brotherhood is worth an honest playthrough. Even as someone who knows they almost never play or even enjoy puzzle games for that matter, I was still able to play this game and have a good time doing so. I gotta say, the idea of a magic marker making things come to life is pretty rad though, right? So let's give it a try, shall we? Choices. Oh. I guess in every universe, every existing universe, I have no big tit.